Good morning, gamers. Welcome back to the Game Shop's basement and the GM Academy with your host, the Grumpy Old GM. Today, I want to continue a little bit about what we did yesterday because I was, listening to it later and I realized that I'd only kind of told one side of it. I'd only mentioned, warning signs. I'd only mentioned, things when you're listening to prospective players, things to watch out for. And I thought, that's not really a complete answer. I also need to kind of talk about good things to listen about. What should you be listening for? What sounds good, coming from a potential player? What are the good signs that this person will probably fit in at your table and be great? Well, as I mentioned yesterday, if you listen to people who play these games, D&D, OSE, Osric, Pathfinder, whatever, Daggerheart when that comes out. If you listen to people who play these games, and they will tell you who they are, and they will tell you who they play if you just get them going and then listen. Just shut up and listen. So I mentioned yesterday, if they talk all about math and numbers and how much damage they can do, that's probably what they focus on. So what they talk about is what they focus on. So what are some good things that people can focus on? If they tell stories about epic memories, wow, especially if it doesn't involve just them. If they talk about the group, our group used to, or our party used to, or our table used to, or our gang used to, back in the day, if they talk about the group and how they interacted with other characters or things other characters did, then that's a good sign that they probably don't have main character syndrome, is a phrase I've heard on the internet lately. That they see the game as a group experience and not just about them. So that's a good sign. If they start talking about the kinds of things, if they start talking about if they trash their a lot of old GMs. Now, it's not that I have some DM horror stories. I mean, everybody who plays these games for any length of time does. You find bad GMs out there. But if it seems like they trash every GM they ever talk about, if it seems like they never had a good GM because they don't respect any GM or no GM's ever going to be good enough for them, then that's probably not a good sign. So trash talk against GMs, that's probably not a good sign. But if they respect, but see, John, this is supposed to be the positive one. If they respect the GM, when they talk about GM decisions that were made, that were good decisions, or if they talk about what they look for in a GM, like for instance, when I talk to lots and lots of people. I have free session zeros that I advertise at startplaying.games and other places. And some of the players, prospective players, when I ask them what they look for in a GM, I'll just give you the most extreme example here. This one person said, I'd like to basically write, this is a real quote. This is about a year and a half ago. This person said, I would just kind of like to write my own world with my own races and species to play the way I want them, the magic system the way I want it, and I'd like combat to work the way I want it, and I'd like my character to be able to do what I want my character to do, and I'd like the countries and the politics and to be the way I want them, and then I just want the DM to run everything the way I want it. And I'm thinking, I think you're confusing what it means to be the DM and what it means to be the player. Yeah, that's a whole other series of videos we could do about what it means to be a DM versus what it means to be a player. But today we want to talk about good things to listen for. So if they seem to be focused on group play, if they seem to be focused on, if you ask them what they're looking for in a GM, or what do they think a good GM was, or what's an example of a good GM they had in their life or a bad GM they had in their life, then you can kind of figure out how they might respond to your GMing, how they might respond at your table. And so, but yeah, people will tell you who they are if you just listen. And so other things that you're going to want to look for is if people, now there's two ways to take this though, but if people focus on the story that was told, now to the extent that as opposed to you know, and this kind of gets into trash in the gym a little bit too, but you know, rules as written, like you know, recently I told a story here on this channel that involved a beholder that has a certain arrangement with a country in Mystara called the Principalities of Galantry. And oh my goodness, I got all kinds of backlash on that. That's against the lore. Beholders don't behave that. Don't you read the Monster Manual, John? Yes, I read the Monster Manual, but I've read many other Monster Manuals before 5th edition, and I've also read a ton of other D&D books, you know, before, you know, they're in Waterdeep in the 80s. In canonical 1st edition products, there was a beholder that ran a bar right in the middle of Waterdeep. And the beholder owned the bar, ran the bar, was on the cover of FR1, Waterdeep in the North, running a bar. Had drow waitresses. And this was before a lot of drow, you know, came up to the surface in Forgotten Realms. And so before that trend started, before there was Jarlaxle and all that other, and Drizzt and all that other stuff. So, yeah, so if a player, like, well, that wasn't rules as written. Well, that wasn't rules as written. Well, that wasn't rules as written. Well, the thing is the DM, you know the world. You know, like, why this particular thing happening in the world that they don't know about might change the rules for this situation. So this also kind of gets into how, you know, respect for the GM and everything. But if players seem to be others focused, if they seem to, you know, have a good grasp of who the GM is and what a GM is, if they're, you know, kind of focused on the whole experience instead of, you know, wanting to nitpick what clearly says on page 291 of the player's handbook, blah, 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 blah. So if they don't seem quite so, you know, rules lawyer-ish, you know, there are good things, you know, to look for if you just listen to them describe, you know, what's the best game you ever had, or what's the best group you ever played in. So yeah, so last video we kind of talked about some red lights to stay away from. This time I kind of wanted to talk about what's some good things that you could hear from people. And then just generally, you know, if they're just gonna, we all have different personalities. Every table has a different table personality. So when you talk with someone, if you seem to have a similar sense of humor, if you seem to kind of see the game the same way, if you seem to laugh at the same stuff, or just have your mind blown at the same stuff, isn't that so cool? Yeah, that, you know, obviously, I mean, we all know how it works to get to know people, make friends and stuff, but don't need to talk about that so much. But yeah, I just listened to the video last time and thought that it, you know, was a little bit just one-sided about what, you know, to look for, to stay away from. So I thought maybe we'd talk about the, you know, the light side this time as well as the dark side. So what are some good things you can listen for? So if you enjoy the content, if it's helpful or useful to you, down below there's a Patreon where you can get personalized coaching, where I will call you, and I'm working with other grumpy old GMs here at GM Academy, and we will focus on your success as a game master, professional or otherwise. There's seats open at some of our tables. Down below you can say hi on Discord, sign up to play with some of our tables. Tonight, it's Monday tonight, so tonight we have Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition set in the world of Legend of the Five Rings. That table, I think, has, it's got like 2 seats left in it or something like that. So follow the link down below if you're interested in that. We've also got several other tables, but the video's over 9 minutes long at this point, so I'm not going to, you know, try to advertise all the tables. But in the meantime, I'll see you around the game table.